Hey, so how's it going, guys? This is Ryo Murata, photographer based in Tokyo. So Harmon Pheonix 200, I think back in December 1st, 2023, 2 years ago roughly, Harmon released a new film stock called the Harmon Pheonix 200. And back then, I think it caused a ruckus, it caused havoc in the film community, if I'm right, that a new film stock positively arrived and it hit the shelves of various locations. It started out in, I guess, Europe, North America, and it took quite a long time for it to reach Tokyo, Japan. And if I'm right, it was until I think mid 2024 when I started to see a lot of Harmon Pheonix 200 in various types of shops. And if you recall my Nishin video where I basically visited a camera shop in Tokyo in Akihabara, I basically snagged a Harmon Pheonix 200 35mm format, and this is sort of like a follow-up video to that video where I go out to shoot with Harmon Pheonix 200. And now that in 2025 the hype is down hopefully and the tide subsided, I thought it would be nice to sort of make my version of Harmon Pheonix 200 35mm format, shooting with my Nikon F3, and sort of like a recap, I guess, historical background, and if I did my research correctly. And please note if I said it wrong or if I got the wrong information, but I think if I'm right, Harmon Pheonix, or the Harmon company themselves, is owned by Ilford, if I'm right. And back in 2020, not 2020, but 2005, Ilford purchased the Harmon business, if I'm right. So Harmon's sort of like a small entity, or is like a company that belongs to Ilford. However, they have a sort of a different research department, if I'm right, where they make various types of film stocks. And if I'm right, their notable sort of establishment is the Kentmere series, the Kentmere 100 and 400, which I haven't made a video on because I'm not a black and white type of person. But I think that stirred another ruckus in the film community as being the best sort of budget film for black and white, because that Kentmere 100 and 400 costs really cheap in Tokyo. It's like 800 yen or so, so $6-7 compared to other sort of rival companies like Kodak. So yeah, I went a little bit off topic, but after about a year later, they introduced the Harmon Pheonix 200, which is said to be the first color negative from the Harmon department, aka Ilford's side. So yeah, I thought it would be nice to sort of make a video on this topic. And please note, Harmon Pheonix 200 is not Phoenix as in the song from Fall Out Boy that I listened to, or it's not from Harman Kardon as in the speaker company. So please note that it's not those two. So yeah, before I brainwash you guys, I basically revisited Harumi Wharf, aka Futou, and I think roughly 2-3 years ago when I started my YouTube channel, I kind of made a video of the best location to photograph photos in Tokyo, which has to be Harumi Futou. But I recently realized and heard from a friend that that area got demolished, or how should I say, as if a phoenix burned down the area, and it's sort of like a landfill right now, unfortunately. And it's kind of sad to hear that from my friend. And because I never revisited that area for a pretty long time, I thought it would be nice to shoot with this Harmon Pheonix 200, because it has this sort of from what I hear, vibe of afterlife, of when everything gets burned to the ground. So I basically shot with Harmon Pheonix 200 with my Nikon F3 at Harumi Futou, aka Wharf. Okay, so after shooting and viewing the images at home, there's a lot to mention about this film stock, and I have to point out that the final way of how you scan the images will differ considerably, and there's already a lot of people mentioning, like, depending on the film scanning method, you will get completely different results. I haven't tested it, however, the Noritsu scanner, if you scan it in a lab, or have it done in a lab, and also the Frontier labs provide like different types of sort of like end results. And also, not to mention that the way I scan my like film negatives is I use the 8200 AI from Plustek. This video is not being sponsored by them or anything, but that's basically my go-to method. And if you guys have ever used Plustek scanners in particular, they only have presets that are available within the Silverfast software that it comes bundled with. I mean, there's various other types of scanning softwares out there like Epsons and stuff like that, but I use Silverfast. But the what do you call it, the 8200 AI and also the 8300 AI Plustek types of scanners, the software that gets bundled with the Silverfast software has only presets that are available. Like, you can only select film stocks that were sold in the past and present, such as Kodak Gold 200, Kodak Ektar 100, Portra, Superior, etc., etc. So for newer films that are released later than the the film scanners, I mean, it's kind of impossible to like color correct this new film stock because the presets are not available, and was basically testing every single sort of like presets that were available within the Silverfast software, and I came to a conclusion that probably Ektar 100 kind of works in a way, but because it has some kind of similar characteristics of having oversaturated colors and also contrast. However, it's not what it's supposed to be, and when you look at the images, obviously the oranges is like super over exaggerated in my opinion when like scanning it on the Plustek scanner. And because the orange and yellows and the reds is so apparent, I kind of tried to sort of like dial down as in saturation of those colors. But when I did that, I realized that another flaw that has with this film stock is the graininess being very coarse and also the contrast being really superior than what I've expected. And because those two factors are really apparent within this film stock, what I realized is that the shadows get crushed so easily that it's kind of really hard to shoot during really in terms of midday actually, because midday is when the lights are at the strongest. And even though it's like winter season where the light source isn't too strong as in summer season, I realized that the shadows got crushed so easily when I underexposed, and I actually did not like the images coming from the film stock. And I had to admit that this is not a sort of like a film stock that you should be using to sort of like document things that are real in our eyes. It's more like a sort of like an artistic type of film stock after like shooting with it and looking at the image. It's kind of similar in a way to Lomography's Lomochrome series. If you shot with those types of film stocks, the Metropolis, Turquoise, Red Scale, and the Purple, I haven't made a video on the Red Scale yet, but I shot with a 3 prior to this video. It shares something similar in terms of color wise, and also the contrast. It has a sort of like artistic look to it, and if it's like something that you look or are fond of, this is that film stock. But on the other hand, for people who are starting out, this is like probably the worst film stock to start out with, because I had so much trouble sort of like color correcting it in the right way or direction. And also the scanning method, you basically had to invest in a sort of like a much better method of scanning it using, I guess, DSLR or mirrorless scan to get the optimal results. So that there were a couple of quirks and I guess problems regarding like scanning and stuff like that. But as you can tell, I mean, if you want to shoot sort of like the afterlife or the sort of like the chaotic world of now, it might be a great film stock to like shoot with. Okay, so the halations, I mean, it's a really subjective area. This film stock has by far the most halation in terms of bloomings, like Tiffin's like Promise or something like that, similar to that, or maybe beyond that. And it's like hard to comment on this because this is like personal preference, but honestly, I think it's going too far, because when you shoot the sky during like direct sunlight, it like blooms like a hell lot. And honestly, I actually did not like that look of it, unfortunately. And because the way I scan is just using a plastic like scanner, probably it would get a little bit better if I did DSLR or some kind of mirrorless type of scanning method. But still, this is more like far greater than the 400D that I shot previously a long time ago. So unlike like Cinestill's like halation, where it's like in a way controlled in a sense, this is like going beyond my expectations. So if it's a look that you're going for, this might be a great sort of like film stock for that. And also, not to mention, like I said, a Lomography's Lomochrome series is set to be sort of like a prequel to, I guess, creating a new film stock, as in color negatives. And because of that, I guess in order to make, if I'm right, if in order to make color negatives, you had to like balance out the colors, the RGB colors. So that's why Lomography has their Lomochrome series. They tried Metropolis, Turquoise, Purple, and Red Scale, sort of like trial and error to see what the optimum balance of color is. And if I'm right, because this Harmon Pheonix 200 is Harmon's first film stock, I guess they're in the same boat as Lomography. There's kind of, they might be like testing the colors to see what it would look like before they create a better film stock in the future years to come. Or maybe, I'm not sure if they will be making a new film stock, but hopefully I have high expectations that they will make something better on the following course of the years. So yeah, that's sort of like my video, sort of like my overall brief summary of shooting with Harmon Pheonix 200 35mm format. And obviously there is the medium format variant out in the wild, so if I have the opportunity, I will highly try to shoot with the 120 variant to see how that goes. And because some manufacturers like Kodak have film stocks that they sell in 35 and also not 200 but 120 medium format, such as Gold 200, if you guys shot with a Gold 200, the 35mm variant and also the 120 variant completely have different sort of like image in my sort of like past like sort of like experience, because the surface area is larger, thus the grain becomes less apparent. So I'm guessing that the 120 medium format variant will have less grain being apparent, so I have high expectation of that. So yeah, hopefully I will have that video coming sometime later throughout the year. But that's my sort of like insight of shooting with the Harmon Pheonix 200 35mm. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it informative, and I would love to hear you guys, and also if you ever shot with it, your advice on how to shoot and also edit and also scan this film stock, because probably using that Plus Tech scanner isn't the best method. Probably the DSLR scanning method is the optimal way of doing it. But yeah, I'd love to hear from your like insight and your feedback of shooting with this film stock, and it'd be nice if you can share your advice to the open. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. We will see you next time. Peace out. Poo.